Welcome back to Astronautical Engineering Ambitions. This week we'll be discussing the old Project Orion. What is that? Well, let's watch a bit of the test video from the late 1950s that shows it go off.
Hot rod flew. It took off and rode 6 charges to a height of more than 100 feet. The parachute deployed perfectly and the model drifted safely back to the ground.
We went outside the blockhouse, and just as it came down and just as it hit the ground, and I can remember it landed very softly, and of course we were extremely.
So, essentially, the Project Orion objective was to produce a spacefaring vehicle that was propulsed by nuclear weapons. The shown footage is of the conventional explosive test model named Hot Rod and is still in the collection of the National Air and Space Museum. The time was the late 1950s, after the Cold War had begun and people were living in fear of a potential invasion or attack by the Soviet Union. The nuclear bomb had been used twice in war and also been proliferating rapidly. Society was practicing the duck and cover in regards to a nuclear attack, so the peaceful daily life would be intermittently disrupted with reminders of dreadful potentials. Then came the development of Project Orion. As per Ketchum, at that time, bombs had only been developed as weapons of war. The researchers wanted to see it put to peaceful purposes in regards to the creation of Project Orion. Likewise, in an interview of Freeman Dyson, one of the major researchers of the project, relates, it was an interesting way to get rid of the bombs as part of nuclear disarmament. Whilst people had a bad taste in their mouth regarding nuclear weapons, there is still a segment of the population that could see their utility for peace and were working to create a better future. While there are already a lot of theoretical work done with $1 million of government taxpayer money, they still had to find a way to test that the thing would actually work. As such, they went to Point Loma, San Diego, California, in order to test rigs. This would check to see if explosives would evaporate the test rigs, leaving the theory in dust, or propel the craft upwards, giving practice to the theory and allowing for more testing and theorizing to be done. As related to Mr. Taylor via Mr. Ulam in 1962, meteors, some of which come in at 30 kilometers per second, do not get excessively chewed up, even though presumably they were not especially engineered for it. While there was hope that the project worked, they clearly needed tests for Congress to supply more funding. Again, as such, they went to Point Loma for testing the vehicle that they had created. The way it worked is that the bombs would be dropped past the pusher plate and exploded below the vehicle such that the pusher plate would take the load of the explosive force and propel the vehicle forward. Early testing successfully propelled the vehicle forward, but after repeated testing, the pusher plate was found to have flaws. This led to the thickening of the middle of the pusher plate through engineering and allowing it to thin near the edges. Also, they learned about ablation, which is the scraping off of the pusher plate material at a very light level, but would, over time, erode the whole pusher plate if not taken care of. This led to the idea of spraying an oil onto the bottom of the pusher plate, which provided protection against ablation.
In the middle and tapering out to the edge, it maintained its integrity. But there was a trickier problem to deal with: ablation, the boiling away of the plate from the heat.
All in all, it was a successful series of testing that allowed for Project Orion to cement itself as a viable idea. Unfortunately, Orion was a hope that returned to confinement after the 1963 Atomic Atmospheric Test Ban Treaty began to close the lid on Pandora's box regarding the nuclear weapons. After this test ban was put in place, there is no longer a way to test cleanly developed nuclear bombs meant for the Project Orion spacecraft, and, as such, innovation stalled out. As the wife of Mr. Ulan remarked, it was such a crazy idea, really. One of those wonderful dreams. Oh, but they had a good time in California, and we went and visited them once and saw one little puff. The little thing went off and then came back with a parachute at Point Loma. They had fun, but did they really think it would go? While the idea still sounds catchy as NASA tries to use a variant of pulse propulsion using directed energy weapons, it likely will not gain steam like the original Project Orion would have. The use of nuclear weapons got the project designated top secret, which ultimately killed the idea's investment by Congress, given that no one really could lobby the government. The clip which started off this podcast is actually what woke up uh, Werner von Braun, the chief rocket engineer and head of NASA funding at the time, whom then began asking numerous questions and helped provide funding for the project for a time. Still, especially with the eventual test ban treaty, the additional marking of top secret led to the demise of the project. Furthermore, while there are all kinds of crazy goalposts that Project Orion could have met, which chemical rockets of then and even today with billionaires Musk and Bezos duking it out as a hobby, there never was consideration of how to return these spacecraft back home. Had there been the funding requested for this project, despite the initial funding and the later establishment of the group of General Atomic, then maybe they would have figured it out. Maybe you can figure it out, given that chemical rockets keep enough propellant so as to reverse thrust their slowing, such that they can return through the atmosphere and land back on planet Earth safely. Project Orion and Project Nerva, another project we'll cover next week, were early advances in spacecraft creation. It is quite a shame that we never discuss them anymore, besides some documentaries of what could have been. I say, these are examples of what could be.